Problem number 2 says, assume the economy of Pakistan is experiencing an unemployment rate that is higher than the natural rate of unemployment. Draw a correctly labeled graph of the long-run aggregate supply, short-run aggregate supply, and aggregate demand showing each of the following. So the first thing we want to show is the current equilibrium output and price level labeled as Y1 and PL1. So the current equilibrium output, that's going to be where the short-run aggregate supply and the aggregate demand intersect. So for example, wherever these two meet, and remember, output is really a synonym of GDP. So there's the output, which we label, or in this case it says label it Y1. So wherever you're drawing, wherever that intersection is, that's where you're labeling Y1. And PL1, and PL of course stands for the price level, so that Y1 is going to be our x-axis, and that y-axis, that will be the price level 1. Then it says full employment output labeled as YF. Now there are a couple of graphs up here that will help explain this problem. If you look at these two graphs right here, the LRAS is going to be showing full employment output. So if you look at this first graph on top, we see the SRAS, the short run, and the aggregate demand. There is the short run equilibrium, and see how they have it labeled Y1 and PL1. Now, if you draw your long run aggregate supply line to the right of this equilibrium, let's see what happens. It says, notice that Y1 right here is less than YF. This means that the economy is producing less than full employment output and is in a recession. Another way of saying this would be that the economy is experiencing a negative output gap. So remember that unemployment is also tied to the long-run aggregate supply, and it's also tied to the real GDP. So because Y1 is less than YF in this scenario, we have higher than usual unemployment. And remember, full unemployment, it does include the natural rate of unemployment. So for example, let's go ahead and let's give you some numbers to go off of. Oops, here we go. So the long run aggregate supply is operating at full employment. But full employment does not necessarily mean every single person has a job. If you remember, in class we talked about structural unemployment. That's when you don't have the skills. Your skills that you have are not in demand. And we talked about frictional unemployment, where it includes people who are transitioning from job to job. Maybe they quit their job and they're looking for a better one. And both of these together, if you do the natural rate plus the structural rate plus the frictional rate, you'll get the natural rate. Which normally you would see something maybe 2 to 4% is an estimate. So full employment really means that there is around 2 to 4%. And so if you have your short run and your aggregate demand, and if they're intersecting to the left, and here we got Y1, what this means is that there is a higher rate than the natural rate. So unemployment might be around 5% over here. So the further you go left, the higher unemployment you will get, and the further right you go, it's even opposite. It's even true this way. Let's draw a different. Notice how this intersection is to the right of the LRAS, which means they're probably operating at about 1% unemployment. So let's go back to this question and let's reread it one more time. It says full employment. We also got to draw this. This pretty much means let's add in our long run aggregate supply. And are we going to add it to the right of this equilibrium, or are we going to add it to the left of this equilibrium? That's what question 2 was asking. The part 3 is saying then draw a PPC for the economy of Maxistan showing its current output, labeled Y1. So we are going to be drawing a production of possibilities curve, and I can show you a little bit about that right here. So if you remember, the production of possibilities curve looks like this. And we said a point on the line represents fully utilizing all of your factors of production. And we said a point below the line means that it represents inefficiency. We're not using all of our factors of production. So which one of these production of possibilities graphs are you going to be drawing for question number 3? And all you have to ask yourself is, in this problem, are we fully utilizing all of our land, all of our labor, and all of our, the other one, land, labor, capital? Are we fully utilizing all 3 of these factors of production? And if you say yes, yeah, we're using all our land, we're using all of our labor, you're going to be drawing a production of possibility curve that looks like this one. But if you say no, we're not fully utilizing, we're inefficient with our use of land or labor, then the PPC is going to look a little bit like this, and then it says to label it Y1. So you would be labeling that Y1. So there you go.